Well, Washington, D.C. sure is a place for tourists and visitors, but with the presidential debate just 1 week out, voters here on the National Mall talked about their concerns and what they think about the candidates ahead of Election Day. Protests here at the Council building turned violent ahead of a crucial vote. Bartenders and servers brawling over a bill that would change how they're paid. Several weeks have passed since the devastating attack by Hamas in Israel, and there are still families living with the nightmare of a loved one being captured. We spoke with one of those families who shared their experience during this difficult period of time. A reunion it sure was, after a dog and his owner were reunited thanks to the help of two good Samaritans. Lewis is among the job seekers here at Jobs Not Guns, an event that offers a chance for people to find work and avoid crime. With temperatures reaching nearly 90 degrees Fahrenheit in the nation's capital today, the heat did not stop the passion of these protesters outside of the Supreme Court regarding this highly controversial abortion issue. And while members of the House are urging both the Director of the Secret Service and Alejandro Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary, to testify, we did see a fiery exchange play out at the RNC, where Senators Marsha Blackburn, Barrasso, and Lankford were pressing Kimberly Cheadle, the Director of the Secret Service, and telling her that she owes answers to both the American people and former President Trump for that security failure that took place at the rally on Saturday. From the American Legion to the Wounded Warrior Project, organizations in support of veteran services are strongly urging the House and Senate to pass what would be the largest legislation for veterans in this session of Congress. Now, the House Subcommittee on Coronavirus questioned former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo today in the House building right behind me. The former governor did take some time to step out into the hallway, and I asked him how the deposition was going. He told me he thought it was a very productive conversation. From presidential immunity to abortion access and gun rights, the Supreme Court is set to announce a flurry of decisions in the coming days. And with the court's term coming to a close at some point next week, these decisions are of utmost importance as we get closer to the 2024 presidential election. Well, Washington, D.C. is getting into the spirit of Independence Day. And on the stage behind me, Smokey Robinson, a music icon of the 1960s and 70s, will be performing some of his greatest hits on this 4th of July. Some people take Halloween decorating to a whole new level, but at this house on Sherman Circle, the decorations are quite literally overboard. President Biden is set to deliver an historic Oval Office address just hours after the Israeli Prime Minister speaks to Congress. Biden will talk about why he chose to bow out of the presidential race at such a critical moment and what the remainder of his presidency looks like going forward. The race for the White House is intensifying, and with just under 20 days to go, we've seen President Biden play a major role in this effort to elect Kamala Harris. Now, he's been stumping for the vice president in battleground states throughout the nation. And upon departing the White House this morning, he was asked about former President Trump's remarks about Vice President Harris, and Biden jokingly told reporters, "You don't listen to Trump, do you?" If you thought the Film Society was not active here on campus, think again. Students that have varying majors, extracurricular interests, and opinions on film have brought this organization back to life. So grab your popcorn and get ready for the show. A very busy day today in Washington as former President Donald Trump paid a visit to the nation's capital. President Trump had a variety of meetings today, starting this morning over at the Capitol Hill Club, where he met with House GOP lawmakers to strategize on ways that he could help them retake or maintain control of the House this November. In addition to that, the former president met with business leaders and then made his way over to the NRSC, which is this building right behind me, where he met with Senate Republicans to talk about a policy agenda for 2025. And what's notable about that meeting was Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell in attendance. Now, with the exception of today, Trump hasn't spoken with him since December of 2020. In the heart of the Northeast corridor of our nation's capital is the Catholic University of America, a campus built on tradition, religious values, and the importance of faith. Catholic is widely accepted as a conservative-leaning campus, especially given its history and authority. But does this accurately describe our student body? What ideas, opinions, and values do our student population hold? With the presidential election right around the corner, we might just find that out. President Joe Biden is back in D.C. this afternoon after his visit to the Middle East yesterday. He urged people in Israel to not be consumed by rage as the war continues. Biden compared the war to the Holocaust. He promised the U.S. would not stand by like it did decades ago. However, he is asking people not to seek revenge and dismiss the suffering of people in Palestine who are not part of Hamas. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for the news at noon. I'm Michael Dane. A ceasefire demonstration outside the Democratic National Committee headquarters led to a clash between protesters and police. Several Democratic representatives and candidates were inside the building for a campaign reception yesterday when the confrontation happened. 6 D.C. council members are working together to keep renters out of unsafe housing. In Virginia, the Commonwealth Transportation Board is working to reduce congestion around the Fairfax County Parkway and Pope's Head Road. The $49 million project will replace an existing traffic light with triple roundabouts. This is a mock-up of what the interchange will look like once it's finished. The project will also build a path connecting the Parkway Trail to the future Patriot Park, install a sidewalk along Pope's Head Road, and add acceleration lane for drivers. Construction on the interchange is expected to be completed in late 2026. Coming up on the news at noon, stretching your dollar, where DoorDash will pick up and deliver your cold and flu season needs. And later, a possible panda reunion, what the president of China told President Biden. It signaled a possibility that pandas are returning to the U.S. We'll break down their conversation. Speaker Johnson, the Freedom Caucus has put out their own proposal for reconciliation, and it's basically a 2-bill process. How helpful is it for members of your own conference to be putting out their own proposal when you have said you want one big bill? Senator, real quickly, what did you make of the remarks that Vice President Harris made regarding the carve-out of the filibuster?
I think I've been very clear.
Congresswoman, thank you. I'm wondering, are there any Republican colleagues of yours that have signaled to you that if this legislation was brought to the floor, that they would be open to voting for it? Leader Scalise, can I ask about the Lake and Riley Act? That's something that Republicans are prioritizing. Can you talk about that? So going off of that, the former president has indicated that he would likely not sign a national abortion ban. What do you make of this and contrasting that with all of these policies listed?
Said over the years.
Mr. Reid, would you listen to District Attorney Willis and not speak about your investigation? Leader Thune, how was your meeting with President Trump? Have you had any communication with the Harris campaign, and do you know if Vice President Harris would be in support of reinstating unrefunding, and would that be a good policy position for her to have to maintain trust with Palestinian Americans? Mr. Kennedy, how are your meetings going with senators? Do you feel you owe an apology to the family members who lost loved ones as a result of your nursing home order? Any regrets or remorse, Governor Cuomo? Well, Washington, D.C. sure is a place for tourists and visitors, but with the presidential debate just 1 week out, voters here on the National Mall talked about their concerns and what they think about the candidates ahead of Election Day.
Well, I think it's going to be a mess compared to your traditional presidential debate.
With the nation on edge, voters shared what they hope to see from President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump in their high-stakes debate. Do you think overall President Biden has handled the economy well?
I would give him a solid B.
Why not an A?
I wouldn't give anybody an A.
While opinions varied, one thing is for certain.
Feeling anxious. Definitely pretty anxious, but I'm pretty firm in who I'll be voting for.
Neither one of them seems very concerned about the deficit, which I find to be a troubling issue as our national debt is now $35 trillion and rising. I have a preference toward policies, but there's a lot more going on in this election than just that.
With the presidential election, I think it's more so a personality thing and a leadership thing than it is what they can actually do, because they have a lot more limited power than people think they do. So I think it's someone who is just going to keep peace and not instigate violence.
Now, both the Biden and Trump campaigns have agreed to a number of terms set forth for this debate. And remember, this is going to be taking place inside of a television studio, so there won't be a live audience, and mics will be muted for the candidate not speaking. We'll have to see how much of an impact their performances have on public polling. On the National Mall, Michael Dane, Fox News. Protests here at the council building turned violent ahead of a crucial vote. Bartenders and servers brawling over a bill that would change how they're paid.
We're fighting here for minimum wage, for everybody to get the right wages.
A fight broke out between two protesters at a tipped workers rally, with some harsh words to follow.
This wanna touch my boss? She's crazy. She's crazy.
Go back to New York.
Really? No, we're from Massachusetts.
New York.
We're from Massachusetts.
Go back to
and
Massachusetts.
we fight for New York too.
This is Maryland.
And we fight for New York
Maryland,
too.
the free state.
All right, they're free
Go
on
back
the
to
street.
Massachusetts.
They're free off the street.
The violence leading police to arrive on scene. What prompted the fight? Controversial legislation that, if passed, would require restaurants and bars to pay their servers full minimum wage.
a move that has been gaining traction in various towns and cities throughout the U.S.
We come to work, you know, with expectations that I'm rewarded. If you knew that what you do, you're going to get paid for. That is what I do when I give service to a table. I expect gratuity because they expect good service.
People that are already paid minimum wage can still receive tips. Nobody's saying no tips.
Lawmakers heard testimony during today's public hearing. It is unclear when Montgomery County's council will vote on this legislation. In Rockville, Michael Dane, DC News Now. Several weeks have passed since the devastating attack by Hamas in Israel, and there are still families living with the nightmare of a loved one being captured. We spoke with one of those families who shared their experience during this difficult period of time.
It's my sister. I would do anything for her. Like if I could go to where she is and rescue her, I'm willing to risk my life to get her back, but I just don't know where she is.
Yarden Roman Gat was taken hostage by Hamas earlier last month. Yarden's brother Gili and cousin Maya spoke with us about what they know.
Yarden and Alon seized an opportunity and decided to escape. They jumped out of the moving car, Yarden holding Geffen in her hands, and they started running with the terrorists shooting at them. She gave Geffen to her husband, Alon, so he could carry her and run faster, which he did. When it got dark enough, he made his way back to the kibbutz, where he met armed forces and was able to call us and let us know what had happened.
I went there in order to talk with our troops and recommend them or push them to go and search for my sister. Unfortunately, after extensive searches, the trackers that were with us came to the firm conclusion that she was recaptured and taken into Gaza.
Gili and Maya are seeking help from the United States in rescuing Yarden.
The thought that someone can come into my cousin's home and just take her and her child, it really creates a sense of explaining how unsafe we are and how we must deal with this issue.
If she could hear you right now, right, there was one thing that you could tell her, what would it be?
We just want her to know that Geffen, her daughter, is alive, and that the brave attempt that she did to save her daughter's life was fruitful.
Maya and Gili will be heading to New York in the coming days to meet with United Nations officials to do whatever possible to get Yarden back home to Israel. In the Rayburn House office building, I'm Michael Dane, DC News Now. A reunion it sure was after a dog and his owner were reunited thanks to the help of two good Samaritans.
Zelina Ahmed was reunited with her dog Max after being attacked Saturday night by two suspects who ripped her dog right out of her hands outside of the Fort Totten metro station.
I just started calling my sister because she was on the phone with me when the detective called. I told my job because I'm still working, so I needed to come get him. And here we are.
Ahmed called the police after the incident and filed a police report in the hopes that she'd find her dog.
Got to work on Detective Hayes' tone because he was so calm about it. I didn't even process what he was saying. I had to rethink it. And then I was just like, I couldn't even understand like the words that were happening because I cried myself to sleep last night.
Dave Graham, who was walking down Anacostia Avenue, noticed a furry creature by itself on the side of the road.
I just stopped one of the officers and told him I believe this was the dog that was missing, and it was. I'm just glad to be at the right place at the right time. That's all.
Ahmed says she is planning on keeping in touch with Graham and take him out to dinner to thank him for rescuing Max. In Northeast DC, I'm Michael Dane, DC News Now.